Good morning, class 10. So as I told you in the previous class that I will be discussing a very important topic from chapter 9, that is debt trap. There are certain terms and terminologies that you have to be well acquainted with to understand this particular topic, that is debt trap. So all of you understand the meaning of the word debt. Please read the topic on page 109 in your textbook. Okay, so debt, if I take something from you and I cannot return it back to you on time, that is, I have fallen in a debt. Okay, so that is the literal meaning of the word debt. We are discussing about relation between the developed and the developing underdeveloped countries, where the developing and the underdeveloping countries, that is the third world countries, fall in a situation that is called debt trap. Okay, so what is happening? We will consider our own country, India, third world country, a developing country, overpopulated country, always suffering from financial crisis. The needs and demands of the millions of people here cannot be catered by the country's government alone. So what does the country do? There may be some urgent requirement of some projects. See, there might be requirement of development of industries, development of roads, or even requiring multi-purpose projects like dams and flyovers. There are so many projects that a country requires. But because we are in a financial crisis, we cannot manage those demands with our own country's finances. So what the third world countries do is they take loans from the developed nations, from the wealthier nations. The developing countries take loans, and these loans, I will tell you the terms, you please listen carefully. The loan that the developed country gives to a developing country, that is called foreign aid. Aid means help. It is coming from another country, so it is foreign aid. So you are asked objective questions in ICSE where you have to know these terms. So what is foreign aid? Foreign aid is the money, the help that is coming from the developed nations to the developing nations. Why did the developing nation ask for a loan? Because we are financially weak. We cannot undertake many projects in our country because of financial constraints. So we borrow money from the developed nations. Now, once you borrow money, you take a loan from a bank also, you have to repay back the loan with interest. Similarly, when a developed nation gives finances to a developing country like India, and what are we supposed to do with that finance is that we are supposed to, whatever project is required in your country, it may be an industry or flyover or roads or dams, whatever, we are supposed to utilize that money, earn money from that project, and after a certain period of time, we are supposed to repay back with interest that loan that we have taken to the developed nation. But what happens? Let's understand the story properly. When a foreign country, when a developed nation is giving loan to India, there are two types of loans that can be given. One is called tied aid, the other is untied aid. Aid, as I told you, means help. Tied aid and untied aid. So what is the meaning of tied aid, which is a part of this particular topic? Tied aid. When a developed nation is giving you money and they give you that help in the form of tied aid, it means that, say, America has given loan to India and it is in the form of tied aid. Whatever money has been given to your country, that cannot be utilized by your country's government at its own will. We cannot use it for our requirement. But with that money, we will have to carry out projects that America has told you to do. Whatever projects they tell you, you have to carry out that project and you have to forego the project that your country actually needed. This is tied aid. And what is untied aid? Untied means you take loan from a developed nation, but you can use it at your leisure for whatever requirement in your country. You use it. Nobody question you. But tied aid means the country who's giving you, that means the host country who's giving you the money, we become the recipient country. Received the loan. So there is the host country and the recipient country. So what happens? The recipient country, if it is tied aid, they will monitor what you are doing with the money, the loan that has been over to you. So you have to remember that most of the loans that the developed nations are giving the developing nations, most of it, 90% of the loans are in the form of tied aid. They are not untied. Tied aid, meaning the developed country who has given you the money will be monitoring and telling you what to do with the money. And all the benefits that are there because of that project that we carry out in our country, the benefits go back to the developed country. And another thing that you have to remember is that most of the tied aid, the projects that they tell us to do in our country, sound projects. They are projects which destroy your country's environment. They are not safe projects, but because we are financially constrained and we need the money, we carry out projects for the development which destroys our own country's environment. Our resources, our natural resources are lost when we are carrying out projects told by the developed countries because our aid has come from tied aid. Now, slowly and gradually, what happens is, in the process of taking the loan, we are carrying out a very environmentally unsafe project in our environment. So we are losing our environmental resources. And ultimately, after 3 or 4 years, when it is time to repay back to the developed nation, most of the time, developing nations are not in a condition to give back the loan. It's not that the financial condition improves so much because of the project that they happily return the loan. It doesn't happen like that. So what happens is, after 4 or 5 years, when it is time to give back the loan, most of the poor countries are unable to repay back the loan on time. And now when you cannot repay on time to the developed nations, what does a developing country do? It takes a fresh loan from another country to repay back the older loan to the former country. And in this process, what is happening? This particular developing country has fallen in a trap. That trap is called debt trap. Okay? It's a situation from which developing nations can never come out. You have taken a loan, you want to repay it back to the first country from whom you have taken a loan, but you are not financially sound enough even after so many years of carrying out the project. So what you do is, to negotiate the first loan, you take a fresh loan from another country. So what is happening? You are burdened with loans from various countries. You are taking loan from one place and repaying the other one. And this situation that the poor countries of the world, the third world countries, fall into, this is called debt trap. Very difficult to come out of this situation. And what happens to the developing nations is that slowly and gradually the financial condition weakens, and also all the resources of the environment are also destroyed. This is what is happening to all the developing nations of the world because of exploitation by the developed countries. This particular situation is termed as debt trap. Okay, so sometimes you get the question of what is foreign aid. Okay, so foreign aid is developed is giving to the developing. Then you get questions on what is tied and untied aid. Tied aid, as I told you, obligations that the developed countries put the developing countries into. You have taken the loan, but you cannot use it at your own will. You will carry out those projects told by the developed nations. Ultimately, you destroy your own country's environment, right? So, have to understand the host and the recipient country. Host is the one who is giving you the money. Recipient is the developing or the underdeveloped countries who are taking the loan and falling into the situation called debt trap. Okay, so I've already sent you notes, and please make it a point to read the points given on page number 109 regarding debt trap. Okay, I will teach you this much. In the next class, I will tell you about international trade. Thank you, class.